government doesn't do anything with the gigantic. Next.
So, hi everybody. Thanks, Andrew, for the very kind introduction. So, I'm Andre. As he said, I'm a political advisor at Queen's Park to Deb Matthews, who's Deputy Premier, Minister of Advanced Education. And as of about 6 months ago, I think the first minister responsible for digital government in Canada, which is something that we're excited about.
And I'm Grahame Rivers. You know, the term hack has become cool, I would say, but we are, and I am, what people call a political hack. And that's not a cool term. It's someone who basically you know, takes any link to get an agenda implemented. And I'm happy to say that our agenda is digital government, so I'm happy to go through those links.
Question?
Tell me, is that mic working? It doesn't sound like it is. Kind of barely.
So first off, I would just say this crowd is unreal. I can't believe you all turned out to hear us, but also to do all the awesome things that Civic Tech does. And so, I mean, I think just to sort of frame this up, what I would say is we have been pestering these Civic Tech guys to let us come talk about this for, I think, like 73 of the 70 whatever we're at now sessions. And so finally they did. I think, you know, as Graham says, we're on the political side of things. Much of the credit for this actually goes to the amazing teams in government who are leading much of this work. We have one of them over here who's furiously BlackBerrying. But I know, so Tanya's on the digital team. I know there are others in the room. Actually, if anybody's on the Ontario.ca teams, could you put up your hands? Okay, so actually we don't have that many. Anybody who works at Queen's Park or in the OPS, put up your hands.
Sebastian, you're at Queen's Park.
Okay, so we're represented here, and a bunch of my great Ministry of Advanced Education colleagues are here too. So I think what we want to do reasonably quickly is give you sort of the overview of what we're trying to do with digital government at the province. And I think, you know, we'll give you the overview and we can get into it in the discussion part at the end. But one thing I would say is we are super excited about Civic Tech TO and frankly about the potential to sort of expand the Civic Tech movement across Ontario and potentially elsewhere. Because we think frankly it's people in this room who will really get the mission of what we're trying to do of delivering better public services for people, enabled through technology and service design and other stuff like that. So just to kick it off, this first slide is really, you know, what's the case for digital? And I think, you know, for this room, we really don't need to get into it. I think, you know, the essence of it is we've seen this massive transformation in society, in the economy, and frankly, citizen or client expectations now demand that governments be catching up. And so I don't need to go through this, but you know, basically it talks about how the extent to which the internet has just sort of dramatically changed things, and the huge opportunity it provides government to basically sort of up its game and meet people's expectations. So this slide basically just sort of gets at the same thing, and it just shows that increasingly the vast majority of Ontarians are basically demanding information, the ability to do transactions, all these things online. That's where they want to go, and so again, we need to be able to sort of meet them there. So this is basically this is the mandate. So digital government, for us at least, is about making government work better for people in the digital age. It's about as simple as that. As I mentioned, about 6 months ago, so this is Minister Deb Matthews, this is my boss, appointed the first minister responsible for digital government in Ontario. And you can see the line here. The mandate is to make government work better for citizens by delivering simple and straightforward digital services and products. And sort of in the spirit of that, you can also find the full sort of mandate letter online along with everybody else's. But I think this was really important, having Minister Matthews take this job, because as Deputy Premier and someone who's very close to Grahame's boss, Premier, I think it was really important that somebody of high profile be sort of leading the charge on this. And this is something that she is very passionate about. So what is digital? This is a question that we get a lot, and is actually, sometimes tougher to sort of explain than you'd expect. But so we have a tweet here from Tom Loosemore, who is basically the guy who helped to launch the government digital service in the UK. And he's somebody that we've been learning a lot from as we've been trying to get our project off the ground over the last little while. And he basically describes it as applying the culture, practices, processes, and technologies of the internet era to respond to people's raised expectations. So again, reasonably simple. That's sort of the short answer. The longer answer is a series of different elements. So I think it's firstly starting to think about public services from a sort of digital by default perspective. How do you sort of start with the digital perspective in designing or redesigning services? It's about thinking about the user or the citizen, so how you're designing around the user. It's about applying the data, the performance measurement in the design and delivery of these services to be optimizing them as you go. It's about the workforce. It's about talent. That's to a certain extent right at the heart of it. And it's about the talent that's already in the organization, as well as potentially trying to attract amazing talent who want to come work on these things with us. And finally, it is about the technology to a certain extent. It's about the opportunity for faster, cheaper, more secure technology while delivering better products and services for people.
So I'm just going to tell a little bit of the story about how we got to where we are. So back in the day, we had at least 30 different ministries with 30 different websites, close to 1 million pages on those websites. Only a couple of those pages were being visited, and most of those pages focused on stakeholder or business needs. They did not center around citizens. So the solution was to build a citizen-focused web page or web portal that presented information in a different way based on user needs. The culture in government was not set up to do this, so IT carved out a space for a team to work in new ways, and that team has been a little bit of a victim of its own success. They've done all the cool things. Other ministries have seen those things happen, and they want to be part of that work. And so in that, the seeds of digital transformation were planted in government.
So for the rest of this, and we're going to try and go quickly, we want to do two things. First, we'll talk a little bit about the how, so some of the things that we're actually trying to do in government to move this. And then we'll talk about the what, so showing some of the services and products that have been rolled out recently and just kind of giving a flavor for it. So on the how, as Grahame said, a key part of it is actually the creation of the digital team. And so in our case, there are now sort of two digital teams at this point. There's sort of the digital government team, which is really focused on a lot of the policy supporting the transformation in government. And there's the Ontario.ca team, which is basically the lead on the web side of things in terms of migrating in content, in terms of supporting a lot of the delivery of a lot of the online product. But obviously the team and the people are critical. This is about the work that they're doing in digital. So it's focusing on user experience, it's focusing on digital strategy, on digital policy, on the technology side of things. and on partnership and engagement. So these are the types of areas that they're working in. Changing culture is obviously an important part of helping to sort of modernize government, which to a large extent this is about. And so with the teams, but also in working with other parts of government, the hope is to help to support new ways of working that reflect more sort of agile approaches, that reflect this focus on the user, principles of service design, all these types of things. It's about helping to sort of build that community. So again, there's the core team, but the team is trying to help to tell the story of what they're doing and a lot of the partnerships that they're forming with other parts of government. So there's now a blog, there is
newsletter.
There is a newsletter.
Meetups.
There,
some of you have been to.
yeah, there are monthly meetups where people come together and talk about these things.
The team speaks freely about their work on the internet.
Which is not always the case in government, as some of us know. Again, it's about attracting talent and supporting talent. So one of the things that we just launched are digital internships. We just launched them a few weeks ago, so this was sort of the example. But there are other things that we're trying to do in government to both support people who want to work on this stuff and to also attract other talent from outside to sort of come into the organization. And frankly, this is maybe an excellent opportunity to talk to all the folks here about the potential that this could offer. We're just in the process of opening a space at Communitech, which is basically like a tech incubator in Kitchener-Waterloo. And the hope here is to create an innovation space where the Government of Ontario can send out challenges to a team there that's going to be focused on service design. This is just kind of another angle that we're taking. We're establishing a digital service standard in government. And so the idea is it basically sets the minimum threshold for products that will be on the public touching internet in government. So this is sort of an important part of supporting what's happening broadly in government. And along similar lines, service design is a big focus. And we're introducing a service design playbook that will basically be about helping people in other parts of government to start to apply this way of thinking and working.
So it's one thing to talk about change and to do the strategy work around change. We have found it's a much different and much more difficult thing to actually do the change. But doing the change, I think our thought is in government that by showing people what the potential for improved services looks like, will help to drive adoption across government. So I'm just going to walk you through a couple projects that we've worked on to date that we hope proves the change. So the first one, and I will admit, I have a soft spot in my heart for this project because it is mine. Well, it's not mine, but I like it's mine. So Budget Talks is this year is Ontario's attempt at participatory budgeting. So we invited people to submit ideas, and in the first phase, we had government review those ideas for feasibility in the second phase, and we will be opening those ideas up for public voting on the February 3rd, I believe it is. And the top voted ideas will go into the provincial budget, and they will become policy. This was all done through Ontario.ca's terrific team in concert with the Ministry of Finance. And it truly is, this is the only time a provincial level government has been able to do something like this, and it's something that I believe is leading the way. OSAP. So we put up a calculator to allow students to...
Massive transformation of OSAP, which is Ontario's student assistance program. And actually, shout out to our federal counterparts as well, because the feds play an important role, and it's good to see you guys. But this is a massive transformation. We think it's the biggest transformation of student aid in North America. Ultimately, what it's about is directing more dollars to the lowest income students when they need the dollars as they're going into school, as opposed to later on through tax credits or through other means. But in the process, what we're really focused on is the dramatic simplification of the process. We're applying for aid, for tracking your aid. And so we're still early days, but we recognize that in order for our core client group, which is mostly going to be students, they have a huge expectation of this be an easy-to-use digital service. And so we're intending on delivering it that way. And so the first step was introducing this aid calculator, which is basically a way to show people how much aid they can get through the new OSAP program. And so all I'll say is it's something that my boss, Minister Matthews, is extremely excited about and showing off to all of her friends and constituents.
Yeah, I just made a comment that I just went through this with my kid, so you're going to need parental involvement too. It's not only
the
for
calculator?
kids, right? Yeah, it's for the calculator.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another one is transparency in the way government works. Orders in council are a very techie government thing. Basically, when government makes a decision, an order in council is issued. Those order in councils used to sit in huge binders of paper in a desk somewhere in government. People could not access them. We moved to bring them online. Data catalog, open data. We've been doing lots of work, and that work shows in some of the numbers. So a platform for public participation. This is a single directory for all online consultations that are taking place in the Government of Ontario. And some of the consultations have met some significant participation goals, including the basic income consultation, which received over 24,000 public submissions and over 700 submissions from experts. This is a project I'm particularly proud of. It's an infrastructure map. Plotting data on a map is not, is not the newest thing, not even to government. But what makes this special is that multiple data sets from multiple departments in government were needed to bring this together. It has not been the tradition that government departments have been able to cooperate easily. But with thanks to the Open Government team, the Ministry of Infrastructure, and again to Cabinet Office Digital, we were able to bring all that information together, plot it in a map, and put it in a form that can be sorted in a way that's much more useful to people who are interested in seeing how their tax dollars are spent. Digital inclusion. Okay. So we recognize that in bringing digital services online, there is still a population that will not be able to access those based on the fact that they either do not have the skills to access it or do not have the resources to access it. And so we're making it a central part of the work that we do to find ways to increase digital literacy and to increase access to the internet.
Okay, so that is basically it. The last thing I want to do is just preview one thing that's sort of coming soon. So at the Ministry of Advanced Education, and this will be fun for my colleagues as well, but so at the Ministry of Advanced Education, linked to the OSAP reform, one of the things we've been thinking about is how to support students as they're making decisions about what post-secondary program to go into, what school to go to, and how that helps to lead them into a job or into a career. We know that there are already a bunch of existing resources, there's existing information, but that this continues to be a problem for students, and that this is something that civic technology, frankly, can have a role in helping to tackle. So the question is, what exactly is the solution? What would a solution look like to help to tackle this problem? So these are just some examples. One of them is information through a college scorecard, which is something that was built in the US. Is it mentorship, peer mentorship, or other forms of mentorship? Is there some other type of app or online product that can help? We're not really sure. And so what we're hoping to do is put this out as a challenge at the Civic Tech Cote Cross event in a month or so. So that is just a quick preview of just one little thing that we're thinking about. And so with that, we will wrap up. I'm not sure how much time we have for questions, but we would love to
We have about
discuss.
10 minutes for questions. So any questions on the floor? See the gentleman there has a
Just
question.
one suggestion, digital textbooks. I heard it's an interesting program in BC, Simon Thompson University.
So we are totally thinking about that. And in fact, the new head of eCampus Ontario, which is like this sort of online post-secondary sort of learning coordinator, actually just moved here from BC, is hugely into open educational resources, and is very eagerly thinking about that. And I think there's the open aspect, but there's also huge benefits to students in terms of cheaper, lower costs for textbooks. So anyways, we're totally interested in that.
Are there any other questions? I see the gentleman back there has a question.
When Deb Matthews was the head of the Treasury Board, she put out the program renewal transformation opportunity. Are you looking at that funding as supporting this kind of a challenge? And feds have that horizontal initiative that tracks where all the different entities have commonalities for different stuff.
So I worked with
Can you repeat the question?
sure.
Not all of us can hear.
So it was sort of an inside government-y question. So the question was, the Treasury Board, there was a thing called Program Review, Renewal, and Transformation. I should remember because I worked pretty closely on it. And the question was, is this linked at all with that process, which was basically about identifying opportunities to save money, but also to transform programs. And so the answer to the question was, this actually, part of the genesis of our digital government agenda that we're moving now was actually linked to that, and it helped to take shape when we were back at Treasury Board, basically working really closely with our Premier's Office colleagues. So that was part of it. But I mean, what's funny about this is it actually has the potential to yield all sorts of savings at the end of the day, and without even necessarily being intentional about it. In moving to lower cost technologies, in moving to more online transactions, all those types of things. The short answer though is yes, it was linked to that.
You've had a question.
My name is Matthew. I had a question about the budget submissions. I thought that's super awesome and a great way to involve everyday citizens. How involved are they in the process? So they make a submission and it goes through the whole process. So how involved are they kept in that process? Let's say they have a successful bid for the screening. How involved are they? What input do they have all the way until it gets to, let's say it gets to that final?
So it's a great question. What we committed to was publicly reporting back at every stage of the process. So if you submit an idea, it gets reviewed by a ministry. If for some reason the ministry feels that it is not feasible, we publicly will post the reasoning behind the decision we made. If it was feasible, we'll let you know that it is continuing on in the process, and then if it goes for voting, you'll see it there for voting. It can be better. Every year it has improved. The first year we did it, to be honest, it was just kind of like a big comment board on a government website. The second year we got a little bit closer in that we committed to do things. This year I think we're drawing a direct line between participation and action on the part of government. Next year my goal is that we need to find a way to get into the local communities for that deliberation. And so I'm not sure how that looks, and in fact I would love to hear what that should look like. Because I think that deliberation step, the step between submitting an idea and considering among those ideas which should come to the top is a role for the public.
Any other questions? Gentlemen there. Anyone on this side have a question? And then you'll be the last one. So,
You see digital as a catalyst or a tool to actually promote breaking down silos between ministries and to actually get the policy people working together in ministries collaborating, or is it sort of kind of on the surface? dealing with the year.
Yeah, 100%. And so, I mean, what's been interesting from our vantage point is, so my boss is the Minister for Advanced Education and also the Minister for Digital. So she's hyper-focused on this OSAP transformation project. And so it was obviously just a prime opportunity to start to think about how you can apply the one to the other. And so in doing it, what we recognized was what you really need to move to a place where you're integrating all those functions. So where the policy and the delivery folks are working hand in glove with the communications folks, with the IT folks, and with the digital folks, thinking about user experience, the sort of online experience, some of the service design pieces. And so what we're trying to do in the ministry, or what we've done basically, is create an integrated team that brings all those functions together, and that is more iteratively sort of working through the process. And I mean, to be very frank about it, it's like an experiment for us too. We've borrowed from our colleagues in the US in terms of basically sort of setting out the parameters of the relationship between, frankly, between the units within our ministry and also with the digital team, just to make sure that roles and responsibilities are clear, timelines are reasonably clear. So we're basically trying new ways of doing it, but it's a long-term process for sure.
And I think like the genesis of like this idea of digital government is exactly what you stated, is getting different silos in government to work together to serve citizen needs. And because ministries, often serve ministry needs, and when the citizen falls into that, the service can be provided. But when it's across government, that service starts to break down. And so I think some of the work that we're doing in the digital government team, it's important, and it shows, I guess it's an example of how that work can take place, but the transformation will not actually happen unless the culture of government starts to be influenced by the work that's happening there. And I think some of the projects like the infrastructure dashboard and even the budget talks project, where multiple ministries had to come together to deliver on a common goal, I hope are starting to set an example of what that looks like.
Yeah, my question is pretty much a follow-up of that one. It was really just, how did you get the championship of the service design angle? Because usually when doing the digital transformation pieces, open data, all the little pieces together. But was it a specific mandate of the digital government office to take a service design focus, or how did you pitch it, and how did you get it championed?
So I think to start, at the time, the digital government team, and I lumped Ontario.ca team in that as well. Yeah. They were probably the only group in government that actually had people who did user and service design. And so by the fact that they participated on the projects, that was brought to the table. And I think whether or not I recognized it at the time, that focus was probably what was making the difference in the products that they were delivering.
But I would just add, what you start to see is it starts to catch. Like, I was at something today put on by the Ministry of the Attorney General, and that is criminal justice and a lot of the things that they do. That's a very tough space to be working. Also, to be pretty frank, reason.